Alright, so we just got done looking at this, and we said that a dialog is used to either present or gather information to or from the user in a program. And basically what we want to do is build a dialog that will allow us to create and later on probably edit, in this case a comic book, in your case whatever it is that you're keeping track of in your database. Okay, so what that means is we're going to make a comic book dialog, and you could go here and put in here that you want this to extend javax.swing.jdialog. Okay. We don't want it to have a main method. We do want it to implement action listener. Okay. So we could do that. And all that happens when I kind of do this stuff on the front end is it adds code for me that I don't have to then write in myself. Okay, so I'm saying it's comic book dialog that extends JDialog and implements action listener. Remember that implements action listener means that basically it's going to be able to react to like buttons being clicked and stuff like that. Okay, we talked about that with the image manipulator. We talked about that with Knight's Tour program. Okay. All right. So then the next thing for you to do is to kind of think about how you're going to input these things that we need for a comic book object.
What is a comic book object?
So with you missing yesterday, I mean, basically what we're doing is we're making a database, so a program that will keep track of the information that we care about for some collection. Okay? And my collection is a collection of comic books. Alright, so what this means is we need a way of entering the title, a way of entering the issue, the volume, the cover price, and the date. You guys good with this? Okay. We can make the date kind of a fancy thing, but we'll kind of cross that path as we get to it here. So, all right. So the fact that we extend JDialog means that we are already, or the comic book dialog is a dialog. So we don't have to worry about like creating that. We can work off of that. One of the things that we should do is kind of think about what is this thing going to look like. All right, and I guess if I was going to draw a picture, I would say that this thing is going to be pretty basic. Okay, so yeah, you jinxed me. Okay, so probably on the bottom here we're going to have like a cancel button, and here is going to be an enter button. Okay, and then we're going to need a label that says title, okay, and then a text field for that title, and we're going to need an issue label and a text field for that issue, and volume label, text field for the volume, price, text field, and then date. And then for date, we might be able to be a little bit more fancy. Okay, so for the date, maybe what we do is a drop down that goes 1 through 12 for the month, and then like text field here for the year. Okay, does that make enough sense for you guys? Okay, so that's what I kind of have in my mind right now. And then if you look at this, you maybe look at it a couple different ways. One way to look at it is that this is a grid. Okay, so there's a grid here where we have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows and 2 columns, and that's maybe the easiest way to look at it. Okay, you could say that like the buttons are going to be in the south and this stuff is all in the center of a border panel, I mean a border layout. So it's whatever you guys feel like doing. What do you think is easier?
Order.
Okay. I'm hearing a couple different options here. I think probably the grid is the easier way to do it. So we're going to go with that. Okay. So what we've just done here is we've said that we want a bunch of JLabel objects. Okay. Now what I usually do, and you guys are kind of familiar with this, is I use the letter L at the end of my labels just so that it tells me that it's just a way for me to kind of figure out that that's going to be a label. Okay. So this is how we create a J label, and what I want to have on there is the word title. Okay. That's going to be the thing that goes right here. That tells me that the thing that goes in this text field is the title of the comic book. All right, and we want basically the same thing for issue, volume, cover price, and date. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. That's price, and that's date. And then we're going to obviously change the name of these things. Okay, and then change the text of them as well. All right.
Why do you have C price?
Cover price. Oh, I forgot the L in volume. Thank you. Volume. Okay, so then what we decided was we're going to have some text fields to go along with those. So that's a J text field, and the way I like to do this is just title TF, and I'm going to say that equals a new J text field. Now there are some things that you can do with text fields, but we're just going to create default ones, and the reason I'm doing a default one is just because I know that this is going to go into a grid layout, so that grid layout is going to set the size of it automatically. Okay? You can tell this how big you want it to be, but when you put it in a grid layout, it's going to change the size to fit the grid that it fits into, basically. Okay? So, same sort of thing there. We're going to paste that for issue, volume, cover price, and then this is going to be year. And then we said that we want another type here. We want a combo box for the values 1 through 12. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a J combo box, and that's going to be the month or moth. There you go, month combo box. That's going to be a new J combo box. And it's been a while since I made a combo box, so I'm just kind of going off the cuff here. I'm going to say that this is a new string array inside of here. And the string array is going to have 1, 2, shoot. All right. 3, right, all the way up to, well, I guess we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12, or, yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Okay. Oh, God. I'm just going to leave it at 4 for right now, because it's just getting tedious. So I'll erase this drawing on here so you can see what's going on there in a second. Or I'll just go like this. So this is kind of a different way that you can create an array. If you don't really care if it has a name or not, you just want those values to be in, like in this case, in a combo box. You can just say, this is a new string array, these are the values in the array. Okay, so we want this to go all the way up to 12. But does that, you guys trust me on that? Okay. All right. And then we need the two buttons that are going to be on the bottom. So we need a cancel button. For some reason, I like to put all caps on my buttons. Makes them feel more important, I think. Okay. Now, the other thing that's maybe not, super obvious at first when you're creating a dialogue is that the purpose of creating the dialogue is to, or the use of the dialogue is to create a comic book. And so what we need to do is we need to have a reference to a comic book object, okay? And that's basically the comic book that this dialogue is going to make, right? So what I mean by that is we need a comic book reference here. So, all right. Now what we have so far is we have like a bunch of stuff that's underlined because it's not imported yet. And if that's bothering you, you can always go to import all that stuff. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can go do it individually. You can go to source, and you can tell it to organize imports. So that's that right there. Okay. Or if you just use this shortcut, this is Shift Command O on the keyboard, and that's what I usually do is just do Shift Command O, and then sometimes like there's more than one J label. You got to tell it which one you got to do. Okay, so that kind of cleans that up for you a little bit. All right, at this point, we are ready to start constructing this thing. Okay, we're ready to make the constructor. We're ready to basically tell it how to build this thing. Okay, so we're going to say public. What's the name of my constructor going to be? Comic book dialog. All right, good job. All right, and because I'm extending JDialog, I can make a call to my superclass JDialog and say, you know what? Here's what I want to do. I want you to have a new grid layout from the very beginning. Okay, and the grid layout's going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows and 2 columns. Okay. Grid layout needs to be imported as well, but what that does is it makes it so that I don't have to like worry about a container and set the layout of the container or anything like that. The panel just goes ahead and it figures out for itself that it's going to organize itself in a 6x2 grid. Okay, so this is a call to my superclass constructor. Okay, and my superclass is the class that I'm extending. So that's going to go to the JDialog class and send it the grid layout. And basically what that means is we're going to have, it's basically the same as saying this. And don't write this down because it's like, I could have done this.
Oh,
Okay. That has the same effect. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and start adding these things in. And so what we're going to do is this dot add, and the first thing that we're going to add is the title label. Okay, we're just going to keep going down the line and basically adding the things. But when you add them from left to right and top to bottom. So title L, title TF. Okay. So this dot add. Next thing we're going to do is the issue label. And then issue TF. Okay. Next thing is the volume. And then the cover price. The label. And then the text field. Okay. So this next one is actually a little bit more tricky, okay? So we said that we're going to have the date on there. That's going in its own thing. All right? But we have two things in this place. All right? And when you have two things in one place, what that means is you basically have to have a panel so that you trick this thing into thinking that it's only receiving one item. Does that make sense? All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a J panel. And I'm just going to call it date P for date panel. I'm going to say that's a new J panel. And that J panel is going to have its own grid layout. Okay? I could do it with like a flow layout. Let's try a new flow layout. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so that J panel is going to have a flow layout. And this is just my own way of doing things. I like to tab this in so I know what I'm doing to that particular panel. It's just a way of organizing it for me. Okay, so datep.add, and the thing I'm going to add there is the month combo box. And then I'm going to add the year text field. And those are the only two things that I want inside of that panel. So now I'm going to take this dialog and add that panel to it. Okay, and then I got to add the two buttons. So let's go ahead and say this.add cancel button, this.add enter button. Okay. All right, there's some stuff that we're probably going to do in there after this and before the next thing that I'm going to put in. So we're going to insert some code in there, but I kind of at this point want to check it to see if it looks the way that I think it should look. Does that make sense? All right. So to do that, what I'm going to do is first of all, I'm going to tell it to pack itself. Does anybody remember what that means? Pack is basically telling it like, check the title label, see how big it needs to be, see how big this thing needs to be, see how big each of these things need to be that are added to me, okay? And then make this dialog as small as it can be. So pack it all in, okay? It's kind of like magic. It's not magic, but we can think about it like it's magic. Okay, and then the other thing we want to do is make this thing visible just for now. Okay, so we're going to set this thing to be visible. All right. So in order to get this thing to actually show up, I'm going to add a main method, but you guys don't have to do that. Okay, don't write this stuff in yet. Because I'm just going to tell it to make a new comic book dialog. So we can just check that it does what we think it should do. Okay, so I'm just importing flow layout and whatever else needs to be imported there. And then, oops, I got an error here. Why do I have an error? I'm thinking about this like it's a panel and it's a dialog, so I actually do have to do this dot set layout. Sorry about that, guys. So that would have worked if this was a J panel, but it's a dialog, so we can't. It doesn't have a constructor that sets the layout for it. Oh, now I'm hoping that this works. I might have to go do a container thing, but we'll just check, okay? All right, there it is. Now, it didn't work out as well as I'd like it to. I thought that this thing would be a little bit bigger, okay? And so let's go ahead and fix that right away. But this has the 4 things that I put on it, right? We were going to eventually add more to that. But let's just kind of put a number in for the year text field and see if it does a better job for me. Okay, so I'm going to put 50 in there without really having a great understanding of what 50 is going to do. Okay? That's 50 apparently. Okay. So I don't like that. Okay, so that looks okay to me. 10 maybe is still too big, because all I'm going to do is put a year in there. Maybe if I put 5 in there, it'll look fine. But I'm kind of done playing around with it. I'm going to try 5 and then know that I can go back later and mess with it if I need to. Uh-oh. Which Kong Meng is this?
We can both go.
I don't know, UWM?
Colin, let's take a field trip.
Okay, so any questions so far about anything that we've done? Then I guess my next question is, would you rather at this point, like, try to get your dialogue to look the way it's supposed to look and do the class thing? Or would you rather kind of see the next step in the evolution? Try to get some stuff done? That sounds good to me.
Yeah.